What's going on YouTube? It's your boy Light back into another YouTube video, and in today's video we're going to be doing why I think Thanos should get a solo movie set in the MCU, or maybe an animation movie, I don't know yet. But kind of why I think Thanos should get a solo movie. Now, actually, this is going to be coming into a different type of different kind of video where it's going to be so like kind of like a book review, but at the same time, I'm kind of incorporating those kind of elements into what I think should happen if they get a solo movie. Like, I've done this previously before, like a while ago. I did with the Thrawn book. So in today's case, I just thought, why not? Let's do Thanos solo movie maybe, because this could definitely be an interesting thing if it's done right. So in today's case, I just finished reading Thanos Rising, which is a pretty good comic book slash graphic novel if you count it as that. I read the whole series, and basically the writers is Jason Aaron, which he's a pretty good comic writer for in my opinion. I think he has some very good works and stuff, especially on the Thor character. Because personally, I didn't really like Thor too much, but of course the MCU happened and those books happened, so yeah. Then again, I do like it now. The art was designed by Simon Bianchi or Simone. Uh, I'm pretty sure it's Simon, but yeah, Bianchi. I think I'm mispronouncing his name. My apologies for that. But anyways, yeah. So this book came out back in like 2013, so it's 7 years old, I think, which is interesting. So that's interesting to speak of. But yeah. Anyways, let's get into kind of like the elements of it. So in terms of, let's say we're actually, I'll save that question for the end of the video. But quickly, just to recap the novel a bit. Basically, it just navigates Thanos' origin story as he's growing up and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure there's been numerous instances of like comic books covering his origin story, but in this case, it's like a complete origin of like what was going on and stuff like that. I mean, it doesn't have the Infinity Stones or any of that kind of stuff, or kind of like the rise of his army or whatever. But it did showcase like stuff from his childhood, growing up as an adult, and just to be clear too as well, this is kind of based off the comics version of his origin. So I don't know as well how well it'll translate to the MCU, but I mean, if they figure out a way to incorporate it into the MCU, I wouldn't mind seeing it. But yeah, if you don't know his quick explanation of his origin story, basically he was born with a rare condition where his skin turned purple, and I can't remember the word it's called, but basically he was born with a condition where his skin turned purple. That caused a lot of kids to be like weirded out by him a little bit. But I mean, he was raised in Titan, where they basically the place is freedom and there's no prisons, no violence, none of that. Basically, everyone lives their life accordingly. And basically, Thanos from a young age had an interest in kind of science and stuff like that because his father was one of the lead scientists on Titan, and he was heavily influenced by Death, who is a character in this book, and it does leave off something in the air too. Uh, as we see, Death is kind of influencing him in many ways, where he is motivated to end up start killing people and stuff, and he's kind of sort of like recruiting like people from along the galaxy basically, and then he ends up in the end trying to marry Death and whatever. And it kind of details kind of like the little bit of a relationship between Thanos and Death. Death being like a female character in this, I just want to make sure that's clear as well. Um, yeah, basically that kind of covers it. I would argue it's more of like an origin story for that kind of relationship than a very Thanos kind of origin story. So yeah, that's basically what happens. Personally, I really enjoyed it. I read the whole book in like a day. It was pretty fast. It wasn't even a day, like a few hours. It took me to read it, and definitely it was very interesting. If you're interested in the Thanos character, definitely I would say give it a read. It's very interesting. Uh, yeah, let's just talk about the solo movie here. So what I'm thinking for the solo movie, let's go in two different options here. We go in the MCU version, and we go in they kind of stay faithful to the Thanos Rising book. Slash, maybe I don't think they would really want to make an animation movie, but at the same time, maybe they would. Let's just start off with the first couple things. First of all, I honestly maybe you could slide away with the PG-13, but I definitely think it could be rated R, like definitely for sure. Uh, I mean, you would detail stuff like his childhood, his teenage years, and of course his young adult days before he becomes the, of course, Thanos, the Mad Titan. So that's interesting as well. Interesting to note in the book, it ends off on him and Death getting married. So that was interesting as well. In terms of the ending, so that could be something as well. If we're going straight like adaptation here, I hope they add up like adapt everything in the book. I mean, everything from where he meets death to, of course, when he grows older and everything. I wouldn't mind seeing some time jumps and stuff like that, and I think that would be pretty interesting. Uh, so yeah, if we're talking animation, definitely go ahead with that. But I don't really think they would never make an animation movie. They haven't shown any signs of doing that, so I'm not too sure about that. So who knows? Maybe they'll make an TV show, MCU TV show or movie. So that's what I'm gonna kind of cover next. Or maybe they just make a one-off thing. If they do make a one-off thing with like Josh Brolin and whatever, definitely that could be interesting. In terms of if they made an MCU movie slash TV show, they could do it. Uh, I mean, obviously, maybe you would have to tweak a little things uh, you're gonna probably add in stuff like for example, what happened in the end of Titans, him mentioning genocide and all that nonsense and all that stuff, uh, which is what he did in the MCU. That's at least what he said. I'm not too sure if you mentioned that he's a uh, eternal. I don't know if you mentioned that really, or either do his murderistic ways, especially if it's in the MCU. Said in the MCU, it's gonna be PG-13. So honestly, if they're doing it in the MCU, of course it's probably gonna be PG-13. I'm not even gonna say, oh, they should make it alright. There's honestly no point. I would more so just say like you kind of gotta get definitely you gotta get some different actors to play the character, of course, because of course Josh Brolin can't be playing child Thanos. That just makes no sense. So in a sense, I would probably like to see Josh Brolin come back and maybe do the young adult version. But of course, it's like kind of hard to say as well because, uh, especially the stuff with death, it's very hard to translate into the MCU, especially because especially he doesn't even mention her in Infinity War Endgame. So at the same time, it's just like maybe they're gonna have to adapt it some other way, which is what I would think might happen. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Maybe they could do the stuff with the Eternals because seeing as though the Eternals movie's coming out soon, so maybe they could do some stuff with that. But like that's really all I'm thinking. I mean, it's kind of hard to translate, especially into PG-13. That certain stuff, especially with death. I just don't see death being a rated PG-13 thing. I mean, a character being a PG-13 character, it kind of spoils it a little bit. I mean, yeah, maybe you could have her as a background character, but in the sense the way she is in this comic and everything, she's not very friendly. She's not very. She's like literally like kill Thanos, kill, and that just is kind of bad too as well. So I don't know if exactly if that's gonna be like a PG-13 rating. But anyways, in terms of overall rating of this book, I would give it an easy 9 out of 10. It's very good. I really enjoyed it. But anyways, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next video. Peace.